What's going on, guys? My name is Matt, and today I'm showing you this, an ultra small form factor gaming PC with a standard ITX motherboard, full height graphics card, and an internal power supply, all of this at only 3.7 liters in volume. To put this into perspective, a large ITX case like the NZXT H200 is 26.1 liters, and even the tiny Ghost S1 is over double the size of this little beast. Here it is next to an Xbox 360, and for a more accurate representation of scale, here it is next to a banana. I think this is incredibly cool because of how portable it is, and it completely demolishes the notion that a powerful gaming PC has to be huge and take up a massive amount of space. While the specs I put in here are pretty modest, this system could potentially house an 8-core Ryzen CPU with an RTX 2060 Mini for mind-blowing performance per liter. The build is all centered around this case, which is the Velka 3. This comes from a small company called Velcase, which has this model and a larger Velka 5. It uses a number of tricks to make the PC as small as possible. Some of these include using a PCIe riser cable to sandwich the motherboard and GPU right up against each other, and the system uses a Flex ATX power supply, which is very space efficient, and means I don't need an external power brick like you'd find from other super small form factor cases like the S4 Mini. While the design is awesome, Velcase is definitely not the first company to come up with this layout. The first I remember seeing this design was in the now failed Hutsi XS project that was first originally talked about 3.5 years ago in early 2016. Either way, Velcase did a really good job with the design and build quality. Usually when you buy a low production run case, you have to place your order, then wait weeks or months for it to arrive, and if you're buying one through a crowdfunding campaign, the wait can be a year or more. With this Velka 3, I just filled out the Google forum, selecting the case I wanted and what options I wanted. I was sent an invoice the next day and then received the case 3 or 4 days after that. Getting the case in under a week is pretty awesome and isn't generally the experience you get when ordering a low production run case like this. With that being said, these are currently sold out, and to get one you have to pre-order for the next batch. The case itself is $80, which may seem like a lot for how small it is, but in the world of small form factor computers, $80 is very reasonable, especially when you consider how small scale Velka's operation is right now. On top of the $80 for the case, you need to get a 300mm PCIe riser, and I just went with the one from Velka's store, which is $40 as it would have guaranteed compatibility. The case is made of all aluminum with a black painted interior frame, brushed aluminum outer frame, and sandblasted aluminum side panels. You can get it in silver like this one, black, and also gray. I went with silver because honestly I really like the look of raw sandblasted and brushed aluminum. But enough about the case, let's go ahead and talk about the parts that I put inside it. I'll probably do a more powerful build in this case later down the line, but as soon as I got this in hand, I wanted to start building right away. So what I did was put this build together with parts I had on hand. I actually went Intel on this build, which I know definitely isn't the best price to performance right now, but EVGA recently sent over their B370 Stinger motherboard for me to test out, so I figured this would be a great option to put it in. Originally I planned on using an i5-6400, but realized that the B370 chipset doesn't support it even though they're both LGA 1151. Because of this, I had to put in my i3-8100 from another build to use for this. The i3-8100 and i5-6400 are both quad-core CPUs and have similar clock speeds, so performance between the two is going to be pretty close. With the price of i5-9400Fs dropping, if they ever get around the $100 price point, then that could be a pretty good option in a build like this. I got the i3-8100 at around $75 new a few months back, which at that price is a decent value. One nice thing about the i3 is that it's very low powered, so a high wattage PSU and beefy cooler are not required. Because the system is so compact, even the Intel stock cooler is too big to fit in. There are only a few options that'll fit, with the best one being the Noctua NH-L9i for Intel CPUs and the NH-L9A for AMD CPUs. This is a ridiculously compact heatsink with a thin 92mm fan attached. This cooler is surprisingly heavy for how small it is, and it's kind of overkill for this little i3. This guy has an aluminum fin array with a few nickel-plated copper heat pipes, and overall the quality is what you would expect from a Noctua product. Like I said before, the CPU is going into the EVGA Stinger B370 motherboard. You can't overclock on this board, but for my use case that's fine. This is a really full-featured board with great back panel I/O, built-in Wi-Fi, and it even has a USB 3.1 Gen 2 header, which isn't something you see all that often. The board is well laid out, and my only real gripe is the fact 2 of the back USB ports are USB 2. Most people will use these for peripherals, but when I'm plugging stuff in, I don't like to have to worry if I might be plugging my external drive into USB 2 or not. For RAM, I have a super weird selection. A few weeks back on r/build-a-pc sales, there was a listing for $40 2x8GB kits of this Oloy RAM. The speeds and timings weren't great, but come on, it's 16GB of DDR4 for $40. As soon as I realized Oloy is just YOLO spelled backwards, I knew I had to pull the trigger. This build is perfect for this RAM kit as Intel CPUs aren't affected nearly as much as AMD CPUs are by RAM speed. This kit is rated at 2400 MHz, CL17, so pretty bottom of the barrel, but again, for the price, I couldn't pass it up. For storage, I knew I didn't want to have to deal with mounting a 2.5-inch drive, so I just went with a 256GB Patriot SU800 SATA M.2 SSD. This is a good value for the money SATA SSD, and it has DRAM, so it works well as a boot drive. Obviously, 256GB isn't a crazy amount of space, but it's enough room for your OS, programs, and a few of your most played games. For the graphics card, I went with my tried and trusted OEM HP 4GB RX 480. In terms of value for the money, used RX 400 series cards are pretty much impossible to beat right now. They offer amazing performance and can be found for dirt cheap on sites like eBay. I needed a short card, and this was the only short card I had on hand other than my GT 1030, so this is what made the cut. To power the system, I used a 400W FSP 80 Plus Gold Flex ATX PSU. This form factor is also called 1U. You see these a lot in servers and compact pre-built PCs. It's non-modular with ketchup and mustard cables, but it provides plenty of clean power to the entire system. This works great for a build like this because it allows for zero wasted space. Building this PC wasn't too bad. Everything mounts to this center frame, then the outer frame goes over it, and then the side panels screw on. I didn't put the absolute most hardware possible this case can fit. I didn't use any 2.5-inch drives, which this can support one, and also I didn't add any case fans. This case can support two slim 80mm fans at the top of the case, which from what I've seen can improve temps by a few degrees, but at $15 to $20 a piece, I didn't think spending $30 to $40 more on a pair of these was worth it just for a potential couple of degrees. Now that you've learned about the PC components, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what I usually do for benchmarks. Today, I'm actually going to do some live benchmarks just to switch things up. Let me know what you think of this method in the comment section down below. So we're gonna start off with Fortnight, guys. I have things set at what I would consider competitive settings. I don't know exactly what are competitive settings. Basically, I have view distance to epic, textures to high, and everything off to low, VSync off, motion blur off, show FPS on. All right, dropping out, we're sitting around 100-ish FPS. All right, so looks like I'm gonna drop at this house. We seem to be running around in the mid 100s, about 130, 140-ish right now. All right, RIP, I am bad at that game, but overall performance seemed good. We were well above 144 FPS, so I think if you were to lock it at 144, you could probably get that consistency. You'd kind of see fluctuations a lot less. So yeah, Fortnite. Pretty good, 1080p, around 140 FPS. Next up is Far Cry 5, and as you can see on the loading screen, we're getting a nice 900 FPS average. Oh, 1600, that's great. I'm gonna go ahead and go into the settings to show you that we are running at 1920 by 1080. It doesn't seem like you can push the frame rate beyond 60 within the game, not sure why. And then in settings, we have things set to high. All right, you know what? I'm just gonna get on this ATV. So right now with this, we're only sitting around 53, 50-ish FPS. It's very smooth though. Oh, 60. So yeah, we're sitting between 50 and 60. I'd say about 55 FPS average, which is pretty good. I'm sure if I put things down to normal, that it would probably go for a lock 60 FPS, because right now the GPU's at 100% and the CPU's only at around 50-ish%. So I'll go ahead and try that. I'll go to options, video, settings, set things down to normal, which is more like medium. Go back, resume, and yeah, we're sitting right at above 60 FPS, about 65 FPS average. For the third and final game that I'm going to be testing, it's going to be Doom. I've got things set to the high preset and I'm just in the arcade mode. I don't know why, but the information, the MSI Afterburner stats are in the bottom left now for some reason. Kind of weird, but at least they're still there. So yes, do you want to keep these? And resume. Alright, with some action, we're sitting between 100 and 80 FPS. If the gameplay's looking choppy to you guys, it's just because my capture card only does 30 FPS. Obviously not ideal, but again, it is what it is. For me, in the game, it's very smooth. We're averaging 85 or 90 FPS, I'd say. So yeah, that wraps up these benchmarks. If you guys liked this format, let me know in the comment section down below, or if you just prefer the normal kind of 15 or 20 seconds per game with the stats on the screen, let me know that too. I think this way you're kind of getting a more accurate representation, especially with me in and playing the games versus like in Far Cry 5, where I normally use the built-in benchmark. So yeah, that concludes the benchmark. So as you guys can see, this little PC performs decently well in 1080p gaming, and overall I'm pretty happy with this build. Like I said earlier in the video, I may do another more powerful build in the future in this case, so if there are certain parts you'd like to see in that build, let me know in the comment section down below. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up as well as consider subscribing. And this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.